it is time for Crypto Calendar, as the clock is ticking down to the Ethereal Tel Aviv Summit due September 15th. Now, the Ethereal Summit is a global series of conferences focused on connecting leading companies and influencers shaping the future of blockchain. It's going to be held in the city by the sea, as we call it here, Tel Aviv. It will host some of the leading names in both Ethereum and the greater blockchain community. One of them, from Consensus, is Min Teo, Executive Director with Consensus Labs investment team, a long distinguished career in fintech to back it up, and she joins us now live from London. And Min, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me.
Okay. First of all, great to see you here in a couple of weeks. And let's touch first about your role in Consensus. I believe you joined it around a year and a half ago. How's it going and what are you doing there?
Yeah, I joined a year and a half ago. Actually, I came from the fintech space. I believe you spoke to my colleague like Sokolin last week, and we have somewhat similar backgrounds and also sit beside each other in the London office. My role in Consensus is I'm a partner of Consensus Labs, running point on all our external investments. So just to give a little bit of context, Consensus was one of the earliest investors in the space. We incubated a lot of the core tenets of the Ethereum ecosystem, including Truffle, MetaMask, Infura. And that was when, everything was very nascent. There weren't that many capital providers in the space. Over time, as the ecosystem has evolved, so have we. And Consensus Labs now comprises an early stage seed fund and also an accelerator called Tachyon. So I lead the investment activity out of the seed fund, and some of my colleagues are working really hard on our Tachyon accelerator, which is currently accepting applications, up until the middle of September, and we're running our third cohort in New York City at the end of this year.
At the end of this year. Consensus, and apropos investment, just because you deal also with investment within the blockchain sphere, how would you describe 2019 thus far?
2019 really feels like it's been the year of DeFi. To be honest, I think there's loads of fantastic innovation going on in the DeFi space. A lot of interesting developer activity, creative usage of, different protocols, including Compound and obviously MakerDAO. But we're also seeing a lot of new entrants in the space, and we're seeing DeFi really lead the way in terms of user adoption, where people are, actually using DeFi protocols and locking up ETH for, real world purposes, be it like, speculation, be it margin trading, be it as, sort of capital at rest, like, and saving and lending. I think it's really interesting to see where we go from here. I think particularly, with some of the capital markets activity that happened late last year, teams have really been focused on building, and I think it's going to be a great vintage for blockchain startups this year.
A lot of people are theorizing and hoping for that in that respect. You took part also obviously in Consensus this past May. How would you describe the difference from the Consensus point of view of what happened this year as opposed to years past, maybe the ICO boom, defunct booms?
Yeah, I think it's interesting where, I think that was sort of the phase that I like to call magic internet money that happened all across the ecosystem, right? But, I think it's not so much that we took more of a sober tone this year, but more so that a lot more of a focused tone, bringing it back to our roots. I think Ethereal really focuses on pushing the envelope and facilitating conversations in the community and between diverse communities, be it, between crypto anarchists, technologists, founders, developers, or just the crypto curious. So I think this year the focus really was on content that mattered, and I think bringing to the stage topics that people were really interested in and featuring, the best builders in the space. Ultimately, I think, we really focus on entrepreneurs, and we focus on people who are making a difference, be it, public or private blockchains, or, whether they're in Asia or Europe or the US. So it was interesting to really just see it come back to that.
Let's talk about Ethereal, the Ethereal Summit for a second, Ethereum in general. Do you think taking Ethereal onto the international stage or pushing it further more into the international stage, because that's been the attempt for a while, how is that going? What can that add to the event? How do you see a push behind that?
Well, I think, there is Ethereal internationally and Ethereal in Israel, which is, super interesting. I think we couldn't think of a better place to have our first international rendition of Ethereal. I think, Israel, especially Tel Aviv, is such an international cosmopolitan city. And that really is reflective of, the Ethereum community that is global by design, very, very community driven. Absolutely focus on startups and creating positive feedback loops. And Israel also has a great sort of capital markets and financing ecosystem that's very, I think makes it a very interesting place to build a startup and also as an investor to invest in startups. I think specifically for, bringing Ethereal international, Ethereal really exists for the community, and I think communities, are still very localized and contextual and regional, and it's an opportunity for, the Ethereal community to learn more about Israel, and for Israel hopefully learn more about the Ethereum community. I think our goal is really to bring a flavor of that to the shores of Israel, and we're all really excited to see how it pans out.
Have you ever been to Tel Aviv, Min?
I have. I'm excited to go back. I have to say, I'm quite looking forward to many great meals and meeting lots of great people as I did in my first trip to Tel Aviv.
What will be the highlight, do you say? Because you're in the ins and outs of this conference coming up. How would you describe what should we, be most looking for in the Ethereal Summit?
I think definitely having the opportunity to speak one-on-one with, a lot of great builders in the space. We're really focused on bringing, people who are doing great work in Ethereum and beyond, not just in Ethereum, other fantastic, protocols from across the globe to Ethereal, and also hoping to attract, some of the best and brightest in Israel to attend as well, and really just facilitating those conversations and ways that, people can collaborate. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to do those face-to-face meetings. Sometimes personally I do a lot of my activity on online as well through Twitter, GitHub. We do loads of Zoom calls. But I'm a big believer that you can't really replace having a good cup of coffee or a glass of wine with someone. So I encourage people to just be very open-minded, walk up to people, talk to as many people as possible. That's a beautiful thing about the community, that everyone is really approachable. There are so many people that, I see on Twitter. I'm like, wow, this person seems really smart. I'm kind of scared to go up to them. And you just say hello and you're like, wow, they're amazing people. And, not just incredibly thoughtful and intellectual, but also just very interesting as people. Yeah. So this is a unique opportunity to do so. I encourage people to do that.
Now step out of Twitter, amen to that, indeed, and meet face to face, such an old fashioned idea. Finally, I'm going to prod you as a journalist. Should we expect any major announcements coming out?
I would hope so. I'm looking forward to that as well. But ultimately I think in terms of announcements, September is going to be a great month for loads of exciting projects, announcing mainnet launches. And, I can't really reveal. I guess you'll have to attempt to show up. But, definitely there are an exciting roster of announcements from some projects I think people are looking forward to hearing about.
So, Min, I just want to let you know that I'll let you off the hook right now, but we will be there, and you'll be the first one to tell me. So,
when we meet face to face, I'll whisper in your ear then.
Exactly. This is lovely. As we said, Ethereum, the Ethereal Summit is commencing on September 15 in Tel Aviv, Israel. Min Tia will be there of Consensus. It was fabulous to speak to you. Looking forward to seeing you here also in our studios and in the venue. And thank you for joining us today. We were BLOCKTV.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.